Your bathroom cabinet has a prebiotic bottle in it right now, the one with the biggest number on the label, 60 billion, 90 billion CFU. You have taken it every morning for 3 months, doing exactly what the label told you to do, and you feel exactly the same. Not worse, just the same. Here is what nobody selling that bottle told you. That number was never designed to predict whether it would work for you. There is one thing that actually does, and once you know what it is, you will never shop for a probiotic the same way again. If that is you, I want to say something first. This is not a failure on your part. You followed the instructions on the bottle. The problem is what the bottle's marketing left out. Let's start with the basics, because the terminology gets misused constantly. Your gut hosts trillions of bacteria, your microbiome. A probiotic, by the actual scientific definition, is a live microorganism that, when given in an adequate amount, confers a measurable health benefit. Notice what that definition does not say. It does not say any bacteria in a capsule. It says a specific microorganism at a specific amount with a demonstrated benefit. That distinction is where almost the entire industry gets away with vague marketing. CFU stands for colony-forming units. It is simply a count of how many live bacteria are in that capsule. It tells you quantity. It tells you nothing about which bacteria you are getting. And that matters more than people realize, because bacteria are classified in layers: genus, species, and then strain, a specific, individually studied variant within that species, usually identified by a code like GG or HN019 or CNCMI745. Two products can both say Lactobacillus acidophilus on the label and contain completely different strains with completely different, sometimes opposite effects in actual trials. So here is the first question worth asking. Does that distinction actually hold up in the research, or is it a technicality? Researchers at the University of Washington reviewed 228 controlled trials across every major probiotic strain in use and found clear evidence for both strain specificity, disease specificity, meaning a strain proven to work for one condition frequently showed no effect at all for a different one, even within the same bacterial species. That is not a minor caveat. That is the central finding. Now, the second question, the one that actually brought most of you to this video. Does this hold for the most common reason people reach for a probiotic in the first place, which is bloating and irregular digestion? A 2026 meta-analysis pooling 32 trials across 10 different strains found real, measurable relief for some of them and no meaningful benefit at all for others, tested at similar doses in similar populations. One specific strain, Bifidobacterium lactis HN019, has the most consistent track record for this specific problem. A 2024 multi-center randomized trial found meaningfully improved bowel movement frequency after 8 weeks, and earlier dose-response research on the same strain showed benefit at doses as modest as 1 billion CFU, a fraction of what gets marketed as high potency. Not every trial on this exact strain has hit its primary endpoint, but across the body of research, it is one of the better supported choices for this specific complaint, which is exactly the kind of nuance a CFU number on its own can never tell you. And here is the question I think matters most for you specifically. Does any of this change with age? Your immune system's bacteria-fighting capacity naturally declines over time. Researchers call it immunosenescence and low grade. Chronic inflammation tends to rise alongside it, a process sometimes called inflammaging. A meta-analysis of controlled trials in healthy elderly adults found that certain probiotic strains measurably enhanced natural killer cell activity, the immune cells responsible for identifying and clearing abnormal or infected cells. A separate randomized trial using the strain Lactoplantibacillus plantarum HEAL9 found a reduction in C-reactive protein, a standard marker of inflammation, in older adults who started with elevated levels. And in a placebo-controlled trial, healthy older adults taking Bifidobacterium longum BB6-8S for 8 weeks showed measurable improvement on standardized cognitive testing compared to placebo. There is even early evidence reaching into muscle. A systematic review pooling 7 controlled trials in older adults found that probiotic supplementation was associated with measurable increases in both muscle mass and muscle strength, likely connected to how gut bacteria influence inflammation and nutrient absorption. I want to be careful with that one specifically, because 7 trials is a small evidence base compared to the 228 trial review I mentioned earlier, and this line of research is genuinely still early. It is promising, not proven. Now, I want to be straightforward with you, the way I try to be in every one of these. Most bottles on a pharmacy shelf list a genus and a species, Lactobacillus acidophilus, 50 billion CFU, and stop there. No strain code. No trial behind that specific formulation. That is not necessarily a bad product. It just means you have no way of knowing whether it was ever actually tested for anything, which is precisely the gap I want you walking out of here able to close for yourself. And if straight answers like that are useful to you, subscribing means getting one twice a week. So here is what to actually do with this. First, turn the bottle around and look for a strain code, not just a genus and species, something like HN019GG or CNCMI745. If you cannot find one, that is information in itself. Second, match the strain to your actual goal rather than the CFU count. HN019 has real evidence for bowel regularity, Lactobacillus rhamnosus, GG, and Saccharomyces boulardii for antibiotic-related digestive upset, and the strains I mentioned earlier for immune and inflammation support specifically in older adults. Third, stop chasing the highest CFU number on the shelf. Most of the strains with real evidence were studied at moderate doses, often under 20 billion CFU, so a bigger number on a different, unstudied strain buys you nothing. Fourth, give it real time. Meaningful changes in most trials showed up over 4 to 8 weeks, not 4 to 8 days. Fifth, check whether it needs refrigeration and how close it is to its expiration date, because the CFU count on the label is usually measured at the time of manufacture, not the day you actually swallow the capsule and live bacteria die off the whole time it sits on a shelf. And finally, if you have genuinely done all of that and still notice nothing after 2 months, that itself is useful information. It may mean the strain was not the right match for what you are dealing with, and that is worth mentioning to your doctor rather than simply switching bottles at random. Let's bring this together. The number on the front of a probiotic bottle was never the thing that mattered. What matters is the specific named strain behind that number and whether it has actually been studied for what you are trying to fix, whether that is digestion, immune resilience, or the low-grade inflammation that tends to creep in with age. That is a genuinely answerable question. You just have to know to ask it. If you would rather not read through strain codes in clinical trials yourself, every time you are standing in the supplement aisle, that is exactly the kind of homework I have already done. I have linked the specific multi-strain formulation I would actually consider, listed by strain, in the description. A quick note, this video is educational, not a personal recommendation. If you are managing a digestive condition, a compromised immune system, or taking other medication, talk to your doctor before adding any new supplement. Some probiotic strains are not appropriate for everyone. Next time, we are going to look at another place where the marketing has run well ahead of the evidence. I think you will want to know about it. I will see you there.